Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video, I'm responding to a question that I got in an email, and this email says, "Hey, Brian, would you like to maybe do a video about the circle of thirds?" I've never heard of the circle of thirds before. I went and I looked it up on YouTube, and there was actually only one video about it, and it's by this guy, Ricky. He has a pretty good video. He's the one who enlightened me about what the circle of thirds thing was. So thank you, Ricky, for making that video so we can learn. This is going to be the second video about this topic. This is going to be my take on the circle of thirds. The thing to understand about the circle of thirds is a couple things. Number one, it is not as practical, and this is just my opinion, as the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths is super practical. I made a video. It's called 16 Practical Applications about the circle of fifths. Check that one out. So the second thing is that there's actually 12 circle of thirds. There's not just one single one like there is for the circle of fifths. So the circle of thirds is going to provide you with the exact notes that are found for each of the 7 diatonic chords found in any given key signature. That's what it's all about. So let's look at this now. Alright, so this is the circle of thirds for the key signature of C major. This is one of the 12 possible key signatures, and the 7 notes that are found in this key signature are as you see here, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. But instead of writing the scale out in alphabetical order as you see in the middle of the circle here, we instead skip every other note as we go around the outer circle. So starting on C, the next note would be E, if you're skipping a note. The next note would then be G. The next note would then be B. If you were to then wrap back around, the next note would not be C, it would instead be D. The next note after that would be F, the next note after that would be A. So that's how the circle of thirds is formed for a key signature. Remember, this is just one of the 12 possible key signatures that we're looking at here. So the next thing to look at would be these red capital M's or white lowercase m's that are on the outside of the circle. So in between C and E, you'll see a red capitalized M. What that means is that it is a major third interval. A major third interval is 4 semitones or 4 frets or 4 half steps. If you go to your guitar fretboard and you play the note C and then you count up 4 frets, you're going to find that the next note is E. That is a major third interval. It's 4 frets. It sounds like this. So that's the sound of a major third interval. So between the notes E and G, you'll see a lowercase m, and that represents a minor third interval. So a minor third interval is 3 half steps, or 3 frets, or 3 semitones. So starting on any note E on the guitar fretboard, count up 3 frets, you'll find that the next note is G. So listening to E and then G, it sounds like this. So the major third interval, minor third interval. Now if you play all of that stuff together, you have what is known as a triad. So that is one of the 7 total triads in this key signature. Let's look at another one. Let's start on the note D now. Alright, so you have your note D. So between the note D and F, you have a minor third interval, or 3 half steps, or 3 frets, or 3 semitones. So between D and F, it sounds like this. Between F and A, you have a major third interval, 4 half steps, 4 frets, 4 semitones. Putting all of that together, you have a triad. You have the D minor triad. Now, in any given key signature, you have a total of 7 triads. You can see them listed on the left here. So the circle of thirds will just simply give you the 3 notes for each of the 7 triads. The first triad is C major. The second triad is D minor. The third triad is E minor. The fourth triad is F major. Fifth triad is G major. A minor. Now for the final triad, which is built off the 7th scale degree, which in this case is the note B, you're going to see that there is a minor third interval in between the notes B and D. And then there's a minor third interval in between the notes D and F as well, which therefore changes the spacing between the notes B and F to sound like this. That's known as a tritone interval, also known as a flat 5, also known as an augmented fourth. It has this sound. So when you play the B, D, and F together, which is just two minor thirds stacked on top of one another, you have this sound. So in any given key signature, you're always going to have three major triads, three minor triads, and one diminished triad. In this case, B diminished is our triad for the key signature of C major. So we can now look at each of these 7 chords in their 4-note form. These are known as 7th chords. So there's a few different types of 7th chords. There's major 7th chords, there's minor 7th chords, there's dominant 7th chords, and then there's half diminished chords. So depending on which type of interval relationship you have between each individual note of the chord, that dictates the type of 7th chord it is. So the first chord found in this key signature is a C major 7 chord that has the notes C, E, G, and B. That sounds like this. So a major 7th chord is just a major triad with another major third stacked on top of it at the end. So the second chord in this key signature is a D minor 7. It doesn't matter which of the 12 key signatures you're in, the second chord is always going to be a minor 7 chord. Alright, so a minor 7 chord is a minor triad with a minor third added on top of it. The next chord again has that same formula. It's an E minor 7. The next chord is the same formula as the first chord, which is a major triad with another major third stacked on the end, so that results in a major 7th type of chord. Your fifth chord, this is a little bit different than everything else so far. This is the dominant chord. Any given key signature has one dominant chord in it. So in the key signature of C major, your dominant chord is G, G7, G dominant 7. So a dominant 7 chord consists of a major triad with a minor third stacked at the end. The next chord is then an A minor 7. We already looked at 2 of those so far, so we know what those sound like. And then the final chord in its 7th form is known as a B minor 7 flat 5, otherwise known as a half diminished chord. So we already know about the triad portion of it, which is B, D, F, which is just 2 stacked minor thirds. But if you throw a major third on the end of it, so 2 stacked minor thirds, which is the diminished triad portion, plus a major third on the end, results in this half diminished chord, or minor 7 flat 5. The difference between a half diminished chord and a fully diminished chord is just that one last note. A fully diminished chord has 3 minor thirds stacked on top of one another, whereas a half diminished chord has 2 minor thirds and 1 major third. So you won't find fully diminished chords naturally occurring in any of the 12 key signatures. Each of the 12 key signatures has 1 half diminished chord in it. We can then look at each of these 7 chords in their 5-note form. These are known as 9th chords. So you have your triad, then you have your 7ths, then the next step up would be your 9ths. So now you have 5 notes. So your first chord is just going to be a C major 9. Notice that the C major triad is still present. The major 7th chord is still present. And then we're just adding one additional note, which is right in sequence on this circle of thirds here. So this sounds like this. So the 9, the 11, the 13, these are known as extensions. The most important part of this thing is just the triad portion. The second most important part of it is the maj portion. That is the type of 7th. So the fact that this is a C major 7th as opposed to a C dominant 7th, that is the foundation of the chord. The 9 is just an extension. It's just icing on the cake. Your second chord is just a D minor 7, but just with this extra note added on top of it. Same thing for the E minor chord. Now you have a G dominant 9 chord. That means you have a G major triad. It means you have a G dominant 7. Now you're just adding a 9 on top of it. That sounds like this. Next chord is an A minor 9. Final chord is a B minor 9 flat 5. It's the same thing as a B minor 7 flat 5, except you just add that 9 on top. You just add the icing on the cake. taking these chords out to their 6-note form, these are your diatonic chords found in the key of C major, each of which has 6 notes to it. The first chord is a C major 11 chord. That's a C major triad. It's a C major 7 chord, the foundational stuff. But then you throw that 9 on top, throw that 11 on top. That's just the icing on the cake. So finally, we have 7-note chords. So these are known as 13 chords. So if you look at the notes that make up a C major 13 chord, that's actually all of the notes that are found in this key signature, all 7 notes. You have your C major triad, the C major 7th chord structure, adding the 9, adding the 11, adding the 13. Now if you play all of that together, then it's going to sound pretty muddy. And that's where the rules of chord construction come in. So you can drop the 9 and the 11. So I have just the 4 notes of the major 7 chord structure down below, and then the 13 up high. And then the rest of the chords, when viewed in their 7-note form like this, they share all the same notes. But when actually used in practice, you're kind of just really focused on the root, the 3rd, the 7th, and then whatever extension is listed in the chord symbol, which in this case would be the 13. So for any of the 12 key signatures, you have 7 possible modes. So the 2 most common modes are the Ionian mode, which is what we were just looking at, which is the 1st mode, and then the Aeolian mode, which is the 6th mode. So you'll notice that the scale in the middle consists of the same 7 notes. It's just we're starting on the note A now. Instead of starting on the note C, we're starting on the note A. That's the 6th note of the C major scale. But that doesn't change anything else. In triad form, you have the exact same 7 chords as you do for the key of C major. Your first chord is an A minor triad. Now we can just go ahead and look at all these chords in 7th form if we want. It's going to be the exact same 7 chords that were found in the key of C major. It's just rearranged such that the A minor chord is now the first chord. So in 7th form, you see that the first chord is your A minor 7 chord. And then, of course, we can take any of these chords and add as many extensions as we want onto it. So, for the D minor chord, we could play a D minor chord, just a triad. We could play a D minor 7. We could play a D minor 9. Or we could play a D minor 11. Or we could play a D minor 13. So it's all the exact same chords as for the parent key, which is the key of C major. That's what a mode is. So now we can go ahead and look at another one of the modes of this key signature. We've already looked at 2 so far. Let's look at another one real quick. So this is the Dorian mode of this key signature. Everything is exactly the same. The only difference is the Dorian scale starts on the note D, but it uses the same 7 notes as the original parent major scale. So the D Dorian scale sounds like this. And then, of course, the same 7 chords that are found in the key of C major, which are the same 7 chords that are found in the key of A minor, are going to be the exact same chords that are found in, you can consider this the key of D Dorian. Alright, so far we were in the parent key signature of C major the entire time. That was one of the 12 possible key signatures. That's why there's 12 possible circle of thirds. So now we'll look at one of the other possible circle of thirds. This is now the key signature of G major, one of the other 12 possible key signatures. So instead of the C major scale, this is now based off the G major scale. The G major scale contains a sharp. So the unique set of 7 notes for this key signature are, as you see here, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. There's one different note now. Again, you just do the same thing to create your circle. You start on the note G, put that at the top, skip a note B, skip a note D, skip a note F sharp, start back over, you're at A, skip a note C, skip a note E. Now you have your circle. Just like the previous key signature, when you look at your triads, you have 3 major triads, 3 minor triads, and 1 diminished triad. Or you can look at these chords in 7th form, of course. Or you can look at these chords in their 9th form. You can look at these chords in their 6-note form, 11th chord. Or you can take these all the way up to their 7-note form and look at them in their 13th chord form. So this chord is a D13 that I'm playing right here. I might just want to keep the root thirds 7 and 13. Makes things a little less muddy. But you can see that this works exactly the same way as the previous circle that we were just looking at, We're now looking at a different key signature. And then finally, we'll just look at one other mode for the parent key signature that we're in right now, which is the key signature of G major. So what you see on the screen here would be the Lydian perspective, means that your tonal center is the fourth note or the fourth chord of the parent major key. So you just kind of rearrange everything, start on the note C. You still have your same 7 notes as the original parent key. Your C Lydian scale sounds like this. And then, of course, the 7 chords that are found in the C Lydian mode are going to be the exact same 7 chords that are found in the key of G major, which are the same 7 chords that are found in the key of E minor. These are all just modes of one another. So you can take each of these chords out to their 7th form, and then you can create a nice little Lydian progression. So maybe the first chord in our chord progression will be the C major 7, and then the second chord will be a D dominant. So Lydian chord progression might sound something like. So that was just a very simple Lydian chord progression based off of a C major 7 chord and a D dominant 7 chord, both of which come from the parent key signature of G major. This is just making the C major chord, or any of its extensions, major 7, major 9, major 11, whatever, just as long as you're making the C to be the tonal center. That's all that a mode is. It's just a different perspective of a key signature. So this is the circle of thirds. I've shown you 2 of them. There's 12 in total. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.